My name is Evelyn May Whitmore, and I am 82 years old. I used to think the worst thing that could ever happen to a woman was losing her husband. But I was wrong. The worst thing is raising a daughter, giving her everything, and then watching her slam the door on your face like you were trash blowing in the wind. It was late October, and the clouds were growling over our little Tennessee town. My bones ached with the coming storm, but nothing prepared me for the downpour that would come from my own blood. Get out, Evelyn. Now. The voice of my daughter, Clarissa, cut through the warm hallway of the house I helped her buy 15 years ago. My hands trembled as I gripped my walker, confused. Her husband, Derek, stood behind her with arms folded, a shadow stretched long by the porch light. He always looked at me like I was some ancient burden, a roach refusing to die. I don't understand. I started, my voice shaking more from heartbreak than age. You're not listening. Clarissa's voice cracked like lightning. You live here for free, you snoop around our business, and I'm done with your judgmental eyes. I'm done being your daughter. Clarissa, I whispered, my throat closing. I raised you. You're my child. You said I could stay until you could take care of yourself, Derek interrupted, his voice like gravel. And clearly that ain't happening. Before I could say another word, my daughter shoved my suitcase out onto the porch. It rolled down the steps and into the mud. A plastic bag of my medications fell out, scattering pills into puddles. My blood pressure meds, my arthritis cream, even the photo album of Clarissa's baby pictures, all soaked. Don't come back, Derek warned as he slammed the door. And just like that I stood alone in the storm, shaking, heartbroken, wet. The neighbors' lights flickered across the street. A dog barked. Somewhere in the distance a train moaned. But no one came. I had nowhere to go. No car. No savings. Just a walker, a bag of ruined pills, and memories too heavy to carry. But as the rain poured down my wrinkled cheeks, something shifted in me. The kind of shift you feel when you're at the very bottom. I looked down at the mud soaking through my orthopedic shoes and whispered, You've been here before, Evelyn May. You survived worse. I was homeless. At 82 years old, I was homeless. And I hadn't even told Clarissa the truth. I hadn't told her what her father did to me when she was just a baby. Or how I once survived 10 days locked in a cellar without food. Or the child I carried. The one Clarissa never knew about. But now I would tell it all. And I would take back what they stole from me, with grace, with grit, and with God. I didn't mean to remember that night again. But cold rain has a way of reaching into the past, into the bones, the bruises, and the broken parts of a woman's story. I was just 16 when my father locked the cellar door. He had caught me trying to sneak out to a school dance. It wasn't just any dance, it was the first one I'd ever been invited to. I wore a borrowed dress from a neighbor, blue with little white polka dots, and I had braided my hair the way my mama used to. But mama had died of pneumonia 2 winters earlier. And with her gone, there was no one left to protect me from Samuel Whitmore, my daddy. He was a tall man, a farmer, hands like iron, voice like thunder when angry, and quiet as a rattlesnake when he was about to do something awful. Dancing is the devil's work, he said that night, slamming the front door shut when he saw me. I ain't raisin' no whore under my roof. He didn't yell after that. Just dragged me by the arm through the kitchen, opened the trapdoor, and threw me down into the cellar like a bag of rotten potatoes. My ankle twisted when I landed. I heard something snap. 10 days, he said, his silhouette framed by the single bulb above. You sit in that dark and think about what happens to bad girls. Then the trapdoor slammed. And it stayed slammed. 10 days. No food. No water after the old mason jar ran out. No light, except when the moon slipped through the cracks in the boards. No sound, except my own crying and the rats chewing at old burlap sacks. And no rescue. No one came. Not even my brother Waylon, who used to sneak me buttermilk biscuits under the table when Daddy wasn't looking. I later learned Daddy had whipped him so bad that night he couldn't walk for 3 days. On the 4th day, my mind started playing tricks. I saw Mama in the shadows. I talked to her like she was real. I told her I missed her. I begged her to come back and take me away. By day 6 I stopped crying. By day 9 I had started praying. Not for rescue, no, I had given up on that, but for death. Quiet, painless death. I remember lying on the dirt floor, my stomach caving in, my hands cramping, and whispering, "Jesus, please take me. Please." And then, on the 10th day, he came back. Daddy opened the trapdoor, holding a jug of water in one hand and a shotgun in the other. He didn't speak. He just looked at me like I wasn't even human. Like I was an animal that had survived something I wasn't supposed to. Then slowly he climbed down the ladder. I backed away. My body was too weak to scream. But my soul was screaming. That's the night Clarissa was conceived. I never told her. Not once. I let her believe he died in a tractor accident. That he was kind. A good father. I even showed her old photos and told stories that made him sound decent. Why? Because I didn't want her to carry the same weight I did. Because daughters shouldn't suffer for their mother's chains. But here I was now, 82 years old, walking down the side of the highway in the rain with nothing but that same memory riding on my shoulders. A car honked. A young man in a hoodie yelled something out the window. I didn't hear it. My ears were ringing. My legs were shaking. My head spinning. I collapsed under the streetlight near Oak Ridge Baptist Church. The one with the broken sign and the rusty bell. That's where she found me. Miss Virginia, the pastor's wife. 75, stern as a judge, and never one to sugarcoat. "Oh, Lord have mercy," she said, running to me with her umbrella. "Evelyn Whitmore, what on God's green earth happened to you?" I looked up at her from the pavement, rain dripping off my chin. "I remembered something," I whispered, "and now I can't forget it." She took my hand. "Then maybe, baby," she said softly, "it's time you told the truth." Miss Virginia didn't ask any more questions that night. She just helped me into her husband's office behind the church sanctuary, wrapped me in a flannel blanket, and brought me a cup of warm chamomile tea. I remember the steam curling toward my face like a memory trying to escape. "You sit right here," she said, patting my knee. "Ain't no storm out there worse than the one you already been through." I didn't argue. I just stared at the cross on the wall. It was wooden, crooked, and dusty, but it reminded me of all the nights I had knelt before it in that same church as a teenager, begging for someone to save me. Now, 65 years later, I was the one who needed saving. And I was done begging. Miss Virginia left me alone for a while. I used that time to look through my bag. The photo album was soaked through. Clarissa's baby picture, the one where she's in the yellow jumper with jelly on her chin, was wrinkled and torn. That picture used to bring me joy. Now it just hurt. Because I realized something that night. Clarissa didn't just throw me out. She erased me. And I let her do it. For decades I had smiled through pain, stayed quiet through betrayal, and prayed through abuse. I told myself I was strong for it. But the truth? I was just scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of being hated. Scared of being known. I buried the truth about what happened with my father. I buried the truth about how Clarissa was born. And in doing so, I buried myself. But now I had nothing left to lose. Miss Virginia came back with a plate of cornbread and sweet potatoes. I thanked her, and we sat in silence as the rain tapped against the window. Then she said, "Evelyn, I ain't one to push, but that look in your eye? That's a woman ready to burn something down." I looked at her. "No," I said softly. "I don't want to burn anything down." I looked out the window at the black sky, at the distant lights of the town I had lived in all my life. "I want to rebuild. But not for them. For me." Miss Virginia smiled. "Then you'd better start with the truth." So I told her. Everything. About the cellar. About the 10 days. About what happened when my father came down those stairs. About the baby I never wanted but loved anyway. About the nights I stood by Clarissa's crib crying, torn between guilt and motherly instinct. About the lie I built around her, how I made her believe she was the child of a good man. I told Miss Virginia how I tried my whole life to be the mother I never had, only to raise a daughter who turned out colder than the man who hurt me. And when I was done talking, Miss Virginia didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "Now what you gon' do about it?" I sat up a little straighter in my chair. "I'm going to take my life back," I whispered. "And I'm going to do it with grace." Miss Virginia nodded like a preacher listening to a testimony. "Good," she said. Because you still got a fight left in you, Evelyn May Whitmore. And I think it's time you finally win. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the window watching the storm pass, and I started making a list in my head. Not of revenge. Not of people to punish. But a list of truths I would finally speak. And it started with Clarissa. The next morning, the sun came up slow, like it was ashamed of what happened the night before. I watched it rise from the back porch of the church office, wrapped in one of Miss Virginia's old cardigans. The rain had washed the town clean, but my bones still felt soaked in old hurt. I hadn't spoken to Clarissa in 3 days. And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel the need to call. I needed to speak my truth, but I didn't need her permission. Miss Virginia brought me a notepad and an ink pen. "Write it down," she said, setting it on the table like it was a weapon. "Whatever you got to say, write it down first. Words got more power when you can see 'em bleed out on paper." So I did. I sat at that little kitchen table in the church office, my hand trembling, and wrote a letter to my daughter. A letter I should have written 30 years ago. A letter she might tear up or burn, but one she would never forget. Dear Clarissa, you don't know who your father was. Not really. I let you believe he was a good man because I didn't want you to grow up with my nightmares. But the truth is, he was my nightmare. He locked me in a cellar when I was 16. No food, no light, no love. And when I came out, I was carrying you. You were the only good thing to come out of my pain. And I loved you. Lord knows I did. I spent my life protecting you from the truth. But in doing that, I created a lie big enough to bury me whole. I don't blame you for not loving me the way I hoped. But I need you to know this. I survived. Not just what he did. Not just the 10 days. But every single day after, watching you drift away. Letting you talk to me like I was nothing. Watching Derek mold you into someone I didn't recognize. And now that you've thrown me out like garbage, I've decided. I will never live in silence again. You may never call. You may never care. But you will know the truth. And that truth is stronger than shame. I forgive you. But I don't need you anymore. Mama. I folded the letter and slid it into an envelope with shaking hands. Miss Virginia took it from me without a word. "I'll deliver it myself," she said. I nodded. I couldn't go back to that house. Not yet. The church helped me find a room at Hollow Pines Retirement Home. Not fancy but clean. Miss Virginia paid for the first month out of her own Social Security check. I promised to pay her back, but she waved me off. "Money comes and goes," she said. "But women like you? You don't." That first night at Hollow Pines, I sat in my new room with bare walls and a stiff bed. But I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Control. I pulled out a tiny box I had kept at the bottom of my suitcase. Inside was a photograph, yellowed and bent. The only picture I had of myself before everything broke. I was 15. Smiling. Alive. Beneath the photo was an old revolver. Rusty. Unloaded. I'd kept it all these years, not out of fear, but as a reminder. That even the weakest woman still has power. I didn't want revenge. But I wanted peace. And to have peace, sometimes you had to remind the world that you still had fire in your veins. So I made another list. This one was different. 1. Tell Clarissa the truth. Done. 2. Apply for my own pension. 3. Reclaim my husband's land. They think I forgot, but I didn't. 4. Write down everything. The whole story. 5. Find the boy I lost. 'Cause yes, there was another. Before Clarissa, before everything, there had been a first child. And he was still out there. The first baby didn't even have a name. He was born in silence in the back of the Whitmore family barn, under a blue tarp that smelled like mildew and cow dung. I was 17, still reeling from the 10 days my father had locked me in that cellar. And what he did after. I didn't tell a soul I was pregnant. I couldn't. My father watched my every move like a prison guard. And the town already whispered behind closed windows about our strange little family. My belly never grew large. Just wide enough to blame it on cornbread and heavy coats. When the pain started, I went to the barn. Alone. On a freezing January night. Took hours. I screamed into the hay, bit down on an old rag, and pushed with everything I had left inside me. I don't remember passing out, But I must have because when I opened my eyes, the baby was already wrapped in an old cotton feed sack, and my father was standing over me. "I'll take care of it," he said, his voice calm. "What?" I croaked, my body shaking with afterbirth and fear. "Take care of what?" "The mistake," he said. And then he walked out of the barn with the sack. I never saw that baby again. I don't even know if it was a boy or a girl. But in my dreams it's always a boy. I see him in flashes. Curly black hair like mine, blue eyes like my mama's, and hands always reaching for me. They say grief fades, that the sharp becomes dull. They lied. Some griefs calcify into bone. I spent years searching quiet corners of Tennessee. Hospitals, orphanages, adoption papers that didn't exist. But every path led to silence. My father never said another word about the child. And when he died 5 years later, drunk and alone in the barn, I stood at his grave with empty arms and too many questions. But now, sitting in Hollow Pines with my pen and notebook, I decided something. That child deserved to be known. Even if I never found him. Even if he hated me. Even if he was dead. He mattered. And so, I wrote him a letter too. "Dear my firstborn, I don't know your name. I don't know what you look like. I don't even know if you're alive. But I know this: you existed. You were real. You came from me. And I loved you before I ever saw you. They took you from me before I could hold you. Before I could kiss your forehead or count your toes. I was only a child myself, trapped in a nightmare no girl should have to survive. But I survived. And part of the reason I survived was you. I hope you had a good life. I hope someone loved you like I never got the chance to. And if you're reading this now by some miracle of heaven or internet or fate, I am your mother. I am not proud of how you came to be, but I am proud you existed. I see you in every sunset, every baby's cry, every moment of silence that aches too deep. And I will never forget you. Never again. Evelyn May Whitmore. After writing the letter, I walked to the church office again and asked Miss Virginia for help. "I need to find someone," I said. She narrowed her eyes. "You look like a woman with a mission." "I am." She poured us both coffee and pulled out her husband's old laptop. "We've got time," she said. "And if the internet can help folks find lost dogs and old boyfriends, it sure as sugar can help you find your baby." We searched all day. Hospital records, obituaries, adoption forum, military registries, DNA sites. Nothing. But then around midnight we found a thread. Seeking birth mother. Born in Tennessee, January 1960. No name on birth certificate. Adopted through back channels. Believed to be rural. No records. And there it was. A username, Stone River 60. My hands trembled. I clicked. The post was 10 years old. But the email was still listed. I wrote a message. Short. Careful. Hopeful. Then I hit send. And waited. 2 weeks passed. No reply from Stone River 60. Every morning, I checked Miss Virginia's email like it was oxygen. Each time I found nothing but spam and silence. Still, something had changed in me. I was no longer the woman begging to be seen. Now I was the woman ready to be heard. While waiting for a reply, I took the next step on my list, something I'd been avoiding for far too long: reclaiming the land my husband left behind. His name was Franklin Joseph Whitmore. A good man, God rest him. After we married in '63, he bought a small farm on the edge of town. We never farmed it much, just planted vegetables and let the wind sing through the cornfields. When he died in '87, the land went quiet. And when Clarissa and Derek started struggling with money 10 years ago, I let them build a rental cabin there. I told myself it was a gift. But deep down I knew it was in exchange for affection. And it worked. For a while. Until the day they kicked me out like an old coat that didn't fit anymore. I visited the county courthouse with Miss Virginia by my side. The record still had Franklin's name. And as his wife and surviving spouse, the property was legally mine. Derek never transferred it. He just assumed it belonged to him now like everything else. "You want to file a motion of reclaim, Mrs. Whitmore?" the clerk asked me. "Yes," I said. "And I'd like to have them served." Miss Virginia whistled under her breath. "Girl," she muttered. "You're setting fire with grace." 2 days later, Clarissa came storming into Hollow Pines. her red heels clicking down the linoleum hallway like gunshots. You sent me a letter? She hissed, not bothering to sit. You filed against our property? Mama, what is wrong with you? I closed my book. I looked her straight in the eyes. There was no fear this time. Just steel. I told the truth. She laughed cold and sharp. You expect me to believe all that mess about Grandpa Samuel? You waited my whole life to tell me that? And now you want sympathy? A parade? Well, guess what? You're not the only one who suffered, Mama. You weren't easy to live with either. Always quiet. Always staring at me like you saw a ghost. I did, I said calmly. And her name was you. Clarissa flinched. Just for a second. Then she pointed a manicured finger in my face. You don't get to ruin my life now. I stood slowly. My walker steady. My breath slow. I gave you my life. And it wasn't enough, she snapped. It never was. You were broken before I ever had a chance. Tears sprang into my eyes, but they didn't fall. Not this time. I raised you with love, Clarissa. I gave you shelter, food, education, a car, my own bed when you were sick. I lied to protect you. I swallowed my pain so you could sleep peacefully. If that wasn't enough, then maybe the problem isn't mine anymore. She stared at me. Her mouth opened, then closed. I handed her an envelope, a notice of eviction from the land. You and Derek have 60 days to vacate the property, I said. Her hand shook. You do this to your own daughter? I did this for myself. She stormed out. And for the first time in my life, I didn't chase after her. That night, just after midnight, Miss Virginia's phone dinged. One new email. Subject. I got your letter. I think I might be your son. I read the email 10 times before I believed it was real. From Stone River 60. Subject. I got your letter. I think I might be your son. Mrs. Whitmore. I don't know where to begin. My name is Elliot Carson, born in Tennessee, January 1960. I've searched for my birth mother for most of my life. The details never matched. Until now. I never knew why I was given up, only that my adoption was done in secret. My adoptive mother died when I was 18, and my father never spoke of you. Your letter, it stopped my world. If what you wrote is true, then I think you might be the woman I've dreamed of my whole life. The one I've seen in flashes, in nightmares, in prayers. I live in Asheville, North Carolina now. I'm 65. I have 3 kids. I'm married. If you're willing, I'd like to meet you. I'm not angry, just hopeful. Elliot. My knees buckled. Miss Virginia caught me before I hit the ground. I found him, I whispered, clutching the phone. My baby. He's alive. He's alive. Tears poured down my cheeks. Not the tears of pain, but release. 65 years of shame, secrets, and silence came crashing down like a wall. For the first time since that freezing night in the barn, I let myself cry for my son. 3 weeks later, I stood in the middle of a flower garden in Asheville, wearing a borrowed dress and holding onto Miss Virginia's arm for support. Elliot walked toward me slowly, holding a bouquet of yellow tulips. He was tall, broad-shouldered. Gray hair swept back like a preacher's, and his eyes, they were mine. We stood face to face. He didn't speak. He just pulled me into his arms, and I wept against his chest like a girl again. I'm sorry, I whispered through tears. I didn't leave you. He took you. I would have held you forever if I could. Elliot pressed his hand to my back. You don't have to say sorry. Not to me. You survived. And that's enough. We sat for hours, sharing stories and sipping sweet tea. He brought photo albums. I showed him Clarissa's baby picture. He introduced me to his wife, Maria, and I met my 3 grandchildren on FaceTime, Grace, Lucy, and Jalen. They called me Grandma Evie before the call even ended. Back home in Tennessee, things were quieter. Clarissa and Derek left the property just before the 60-day deadline.
No επάλεγεις.
No calls. But I wasn't bitter. I wrote her one final letter. I will always be your mother, but I no longer carry your shame. I've spent too long carrying pain that wasn't mine. I've found my peace, Clarissa. I hope someday you'll find yours. I placed the letter under her old baby blanket, packed away in my closet, just in case she ever came back. Now at 82, I wake up every morning in my small sunlit room at Hollow Pines. My son calls every Sunday. My grandkids send postcards. And Miss Virginia makes a sweet potato pie every Thursday. I'm still poor. Still slow. Still healing. But I am not broken. Not forgotten. Not ashamed. I'm Evelyn May Whitmore. The girl who was locked in a cellar. The mother who lost everything. The woman who took it all back. And if you're hearing this story, I hope you remember one thing. Your pain doesn't define you. Your survival does. And it's never too late to find your strength.